This is We Are What We Overcome. What you're about to hear are the ramblings and reflections of three ordinary people, drawing on their own personal and occasionally professional experiences. These conversations are unprepared, subjective, and should not be taken as medical advice or instruction. Anyone seeking help should always carry out their own research, or better yet, speak to a professional about their circumstances.
I like that, Nick. That American lady saying recording in progress always makes you feel like we're about to step out on the big wide world stage that is this life, or something like that. Anyway, welcome to the We Are What We Overcome podcast. We're from various locations around the country. I'm currently sitting in a van in the middle of Derby, waiting for rain and thunder to strike me down, like some kind of resolution from God to say, yes, I do exist, but I don't think it's going to happen. Or if it does, it's a complete coincidence. Let's get over it. Anyway.
We Are What We Overcome on this occasion features musician Matt McGuinness, improviser Nick Tyler, and psychotherapist Wes Evans. Sit back, enjoy, and remember, it's good to talk.
Let's move on, shall we? Let's introduce some fine, good friends here. We'll go to Nick first, shall we? How are you doing, Nick?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm enjoying the newly humid weather as the thunderstorms kick in, so that's exciting. I'm pretty well, actually. Went to my first Lego convention last weekend where I displayed Lego, which was remarkably affirming of my otherwise entirely childish hobby. And so that's made me feel much less like it's just a kid's thing, which it obviously is. And people were very nice and everybody was very nice. And I feel very good and validated by the whole affair. And that warm glow has continued to suffuse me this week. So that's all good. How about you, Wes?
Not too bad. Tired, a few bits of things going on in the background which are consuming things, but yeah, I'm all right. Nice to be speaking to you, gents.
Young Matt.
Well, that's me, isn't it? So I'm all right. I'm going away next week. I've been quite worried about getting work done before I go away. It's always that thing, isn't it? You think, I've got to finish everything off, except for the fact that is entirely impossible to finish everything off by its absolute definition. So I probably need to relax into that. And I think for the first time in my life, I might do one of those automatic things on email that says, I'm not available. Phone someone else. I might just do that, so I could just do a whole massive list of anything you could possibly want to talk to me about, and different ways to contact them, including you two. I should put you two in, not you two the band obviously, but you two as in Nick and Wes. I might. So if you get some weird phone calls or emails, you know where it's come from.
Do I get to?
Sounds like a great use for spam.
In my direction.
I would say if you're phoning me to talk about Leeds or that sort of area of the country, or generally that kind of thing, phone Wes. If you want someone to have an argument with, even though he seems as though he's not having an argument with you, phone Nick. That's probably fair.
Yeah, right.
So Leeds is my association.
Yeah. And if you really want to if you want to speak to someone who's really arrogant and rude, you'll have to wait till I get back up holiday, that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, you can set an out of office message at any time, Matt. You can just leave it on all the time.
Yeah, even when you're in the office.
That empower you through technology.
Annoying. I should do that, shouldn't I? And you put the date on it, the date that's prior to the date that they're trying to get hold of you from. You go, well, you're not now, are you? It says you're not now. It's changed. Anyway, what we're talking about
10 ways to annoy other people from the sounds of it. Today we're talking about something that I don't think I know much about. You guys want to talk about brain fog, or in particular, Matt, you brought this up. You want to talk about why? Yeah,
well, I was thinking. So the other end to it, I was thinking about how to describe it and what it was. I was talking to my much better half about it. And I think it's one of those. It's almost one of those things that when you go and see a doctor and they say, "What type of pain is it?" And you have to try and describe to someone who's not feeling that what it actually is that you never quite get the right. Well, it's sort of like a bruise, but it's on the inside. It's not. Is it a stabbing pain? No. Is it consistent? Well, sort of. It doesn't really hurt. But, you know, that kind of thing. And I think that's the same true about the brain fog thing. I mean, do we all, if we say brain fog, do we all have the same view of what that is? So for me, yesterday, I for the whole day, I would generally if I could, I wouldn't want to speak to anyone at all, as in no one on the planet. People would ask me things that were perfectly reasonable and wouldn't require much of an answer, and I didn't want to answer them. Everyone on the road was obviously driving terribly, and beyond that, I just didn't really want to do anything. And it was almost like my head was completely full of stuff, and there was no capacity to even think about getting some food, and it was awful. And I felt, for the whole day, I felt terrible. And the only way I've got to cope with it, because I've had it before, is I just give up and I do nothing. But the issue is on the days that you can't do that, or that you feel you can't do that, it makes it worse, isn't it?
Oh, that sounds most unpleasant. Although I love the general advice, which is give up and do nothing. That might be my favourite thing that you've ever said, Matt. That sounds good. I'm not sure if I have experienced that as such. I mean, I've experienced like feeling too full. I guess I would never have characterized it as brain fog. Maybe that's just a term that I wouldn't have occurred to me. What about you, Wes?
Well, I could relate to this straight away when you suggested it as a topic, and I think you were right then to just think, well, what is it we're actually talking about, and how do different people see it, kind of thing, because maybe people have different images about this, but. Some of what you said is how I would describe it, I think. I was just thinking then, as you were talking about kind of too many tabs open on the computer, so the computer starts to lag and go and can't function fully, and it can't kind of carry out tasks to its full potential. And that's kind of how I think about brain fog, is a full head, like you kind of just said there, Nick, and you said the same, Matt, but also kind of like just not being able to concentrate and focus. Or like you've not got the mental energy, and so eventually just kind of reboot or crash is needed or something. That's definitely the way I would describe it. It's something I experience pretty regularly as well.
It's something that I think I first heard about in the context of like long COVID. That seems to be or at least that's when the term first popped up for me, when everyone's talking about
you're
you
right.
get COVID and then you're knackered for like 3 years. But then I also wasn't sure if that was the same as chronic fatigue and all that kind of jazz. But then I'm not sure if they've properly distinguished those things either, medically.
I think, maybe it's not quite been officially kind of thought about or whatever, but I would think, building on what you just said, I would probably think about it as like brain or head fatigue. When I think of chronic fatigue, I think about people's bodies being knackered. I think about this being the head and the brain and the mind.
It's the kind of thing that, normally I would have thought, I go to, just absolutely knackered. You can't think straight. So you go to sleep, you get a nice sleep, even if it's like a 5-minute quick kit, and then you wake up and you feel completely refreshed. The difference is, if I go to sleep and I wake up, I feel exactly the same way. It makes no difference, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I generally found the only way to deal with it is just to watch some abysmal TV, and that's it. And that sounds daft, but that's it. That's the sort of level, where you're almost a bit zombie-ish. And I find it really difficult. I mean, I was trying to do some work that I really would like to do. And normally I could write for, whether it's worth anything or not, I could write a lot. And I just looked at it yesterday and I just thought, no, I just can't. And I don't know where it comes from either.
That was going to be my question. What? Obviously, there's something about having too many things on, but we often have too many things on, and it doesn't result in that. A lot of the time we can juggle the billion aspects of family life, work, and everything else. So what's the trigger for it?
I don't know. I mean, I also don't know why I can't get my head around it. I mean, I know that's a stupid thing about mental health sometimes, but I actually work for myself. Things are pretty good. I could delay stuff and I could get other people to do stuff and but it doesn't seem to make any difference. It's just, I'm in a really good position compared to a lot of people. Not financially, I guess, but well, that's all right. But just in terms of having flexibility in my life and support from people. But that doesn't seem to alleviate it in any way at all that you think it would actually.
Yeah, if it's a delegation issue, you think like being able to palm off quarter of your work or whatever should free up that.
Yeah.
Does
I
that
think
do the same
I've
for you,
heard
Ross?
of. I was thinking. I've heard of brain fog being associated with a variety of different things. We already started to mention a couple, didn't we? About kind of
Mm.
heard it pop up with COVID and and then and mental health in general. I think people experiencing depression will speak about brain fog sometimes as well.
Mm.
I think stress is known to be a bit of a contributor towards it, which is kind of what you were just alluding to there, isn't it? Having too much on, kind of being at threshold, and normally we can juggle it, but maybe it's about that going on for so long that it kind of kicks something in or something. So stress, I think, and sleep probably. But an area in which I'm hearing it more and more recently is to do with ADHD, and I haven't actually mentioned this to you two, but I'm awaiting assessment for ADHD. I've been waiting for about a year now, and so as I've been kind of making sense of my own experience, brain fog has been a part of it actually, and it's something that I've learned is apparently quite common with people who have ADHD as well. So just to chuck another kind of angle in the mix.
So is that about getting overstimulated and overly maxed out by just too many things?
Yeah, I think so. And for me, I suppose the kind of idea of constantly lots of things going on inside my head. I mean, I think ADHD is probably a whole other topic and maybe one worth exploring, but massively misunderstood potentially. I think people think of hyper naughty little boys, of which I was, by the way. But what people probably don't think about as much is ADHD into adulthood, which there's a whole lot we could probably discuss there. But for me, I think some of that hyperactivity was internalized. And one big part of ADHD is struggling with focus and mental organization and planning and memory. And of course, when all of that's going on or trying to be achieved, brain fog is very relevant in the mix to all of that. Tripping over yourself mentally or not being able to kind of organize your thoughts or stay on task. So sometimes when it's at its worst for me, like you said, Matt, I can't even be asked answering a question, or I can't even find my words just to say something really simple. So I think it's probably exacerbated by the same things as it is for other people who experience brain fog for different reasons, like stress and sleep and overload and everything else. But yeah, kind of is a bit of a thing for me generally sometimes anyway.
The difference can be absolutely massive. I mean, it's like yesterday I felt like that, and then probably a couple of days before that, I did so much work in one day, which is fortunate. And it all seemed pretty easy, and I could see it all. And you can almost fix anything. I mean, most things can be fixed. We just don't want to fix them, do we? But you look at stuff and you think, I could do that and that and that, and A equals B and B equals, and it's really simple. And I go from that extreme to yesterday, within 24 hours, and it really annoys me. So if I could have the first day all the time, I think I might have some money in the bank, or I might have achieved quite a bit more.
I reckon you drive the rest of us crazy.
Sounds like extra stuff then about like guilt and frustration and everything else chucked on top of it. Then.
Yeah, that's not going to help, is it? If you're led into a place where you can't think about anything and feel bad about not being able to think about anything. I think the only direct relationship I can find with that has probably been when in grief, and that's such an intense and overwhelming thing that even though I'm fairly used to juggling a bunch of different stuff, that it's just the one thing that pushes everything else into a corner. And I guess in that state, it is hard to find words and think about anything else. Yeah, and indeed do anything. I suspect that's my main experience of that, but I do understand the guilt of not having done the things that you've convinced yourself that you must do and therefore beat yourself up further for being in that state. That's grim.
I just still can't. I mean, I think at some point I just need to try to come to terms with the different days, and it's like anything, isn't it? It's, sometimes there is no particular reason, and even if there is a reason, it's highly unlikely that I'll find it or be able to do anything about it. So, like everything else, you just need to settle into the fact that that's just who you are. That that's the end of it. For better or worse.
Yeah, having the freedom to structure your life in a way that makes it possible to cope with that is quite handy. Being self-employed gives you, I guess, a little bit more freedom for that. You're like, okay, today's a write-off. It's gonna suffer for a couple of days, but you can probably survive the odd day like that.
Yeah,
it's
Well,
harder
and
doing a
some of the
9 to
things-
5, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the things that are supposedly helpful for brain fog are things like, well, obviously sleep's one thing, stress reduction, addressing routine, exercise. And I suppose if you are self-employed, in theory, you've got more control over your routine and what you do when and all of that, haven't you? In theory.
you've just got to do something that I'm not very good at, which is get out of the game, isn't it? You can't. You've got to. I think I might try and do that more to really get ahead of what I'm supposed to be doing, so that almost anticipating that you can build in a day off at some point in the future. That might be tomorrow or the day after. But you can't afford to do what I've done in the past, which is leave everything to the last very second that it needs to be done, and then somehow get away with it.
Well, that's the downside, isn't it? You either, with being self-employed, I suppose is that you can either just slip into this pattern of never really taking any time because you're never really fully switched off. Even if you're not always fully engaged, you're never really fully switched off from kind of work mode because you just tend into bits of things constantly. Or, you don't have someone breathing down your neck. So it's kind of like, oh, well, I'll do that tomorrow or whatever. And then, like you say, your lastminute.com and high stress levels kind of thing. And I probably bounce between those two things. And it sounds like you do, Matt.
I couldn't handle the unstructured nature of being self-employed. I don't think the reliance. I just do nothing. I just play with Lego. And I'll be like, it doesn't really matter, does it? I could just not do any of these things, and it will be all right. Working from home is already a bit of a test on that basis.
I can't work from home.
Survive that one.
Not to do that for that reason, because I just end up aimless and listless, and I need to be out and about and moving and stuff.
Interesting. I found that really good actually. Being at home took a while. Having my own space to do it in has worked really nicely.
There must be some people who work for themselves building Lego, mustn't there? I mean, that must be a thing.
Oh yeah,
there are some some proper Lego builders. That looks like honestly looks like less fun. Let's get 150,000 black bricks and just assemble them into a car. You're like, oh, are you following your instructions? I don't like instructions. I don't like direction. I want structure but no direction.
Aren't the people that design kits? They come up with the kit, like, so you're creating the instructions, aren't you?
I guess so. I think they do it in a lot more structured, organized, and won't immediately fall apart if you touch it kind of way, as I found displaying last weekend.
There was a program about this at some point.
There's a great little lad who just came up, and the parents are going, "Don't touch anything. Just don't touch anything." Instantly, he's like reaching straight for these really fragile doors in front of him, and his mum's face must have been the exact mirror of mine. It was wonderful, and she's like took him away from that, and he came straight back and ripped something else off another build. So, oh my god, I'm so sorry. It's like, it's all right. It's Lego. This is exactly what it's for. But I can't build anything that would stay together for more than 10 seconds. My future is not in Lego design. It is in lingering at home and having fun sorting Lego. Another tragic endeavor. So we talked about like trying to structure your life to handle or be prepared for brain fog. But like other than Matt's like just do nothing. What's the other way out of it? There must be other routes out of being in that state.
Yeah, it's supposed to be good. It's supposed to be as a stress reduction thing, which obviously is supposed to be a bit of a driver for brain fog for lots of people. But the chemicals that it releases in your body and your brain can improve focus and mental capacity and all that kind of stuff. So exercise is definitely on the list.
I find swimming quite good because it's you're obviously focused on not drowning, and so that's the primary thing in your head, isn't it? You sort of you can be quite lost in a swimming pool, I find, and be in a way that it's quite difficult when you're on dry land or whatever else you want to call it. Where there's other distractions. Within a swimming pool, there's very few distractions except the fact of swim or float. And so I find that quite helpful.
Well, you just talked about it being that it really narrows your focus. You're concentrating on not drowning. I suppose, without sounding fluffy, mindfulness, meditation, which means different things to different people. I suppose the point of that is it's supposed to focus your attention and still your mind and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably another thing that's a recognized strategy for brain fog.
Yeah, I guess the problem when anyone does that, it's just as soon as they start saying, let's just focus on something else or focus on a dolphin in the clouds or something, my mind immediately jumps from that to something else to something else. Do you know what I mean?
I'm really shit at it. I can't do it. But there are different ways in which you can approach it. So I've tried different things with different people at different times. And I mean, even just the breath stuff. It's like, don't fight with your mind wandering. When you notice that you're wandering, just pull yourself back to your breath kind of thing. And the breath is what you're focusing on, just like when you're swimming, you're focusing on not drowning. But then there are other things where you will just take 5 or 10 minutes just to kind of be with whatever is there. And so instead of fighting with it, trying to direct it, it's more like, oh, that's there. And, oh, okay, that's there. Oh, that's helpful to know. Oh, right. So I think people do mindfulness and meditation for different reasons. And I think people jump on it and go, yeah, I'm going to do the mindfulness thing. And it's like, what are you doing it for? Because actually there's probably different purposes or whatever for it. So
yeah, and I think it probably matters knowing what you're doing it for as well, doesn't it? Rather than just doing the thing.
Just sitting there doing it for no reason or with no kind of aim, I suppose. What would you want it for brain fog? I guess it would be to calm your mind down, or just to focus on one thing so that you don't have to focus on 100 things. I don't know.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Like other things that are, all the things that are bubbled up in your head when you're experiencing brain fog, are all of them like important things, or is it a case of like your mind has assigned them all equal priority, things that really shouldn't be important, as well as the things that are important? Is it? I just wonder whether it's a cognitive processing thing where I've got 84 things to do. Actually, 3 of them are really important, but there's also these other 80 things that are trivial, but I can't now separate them.
For me,
sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, Matt. Go for it.
So quite a lot of the time, it isn't having any thoughts about anything else. It's like having a headache, but without the pain, sort of thing. It's like your head's expanding outward from the inside out and pushing against the outside of your head. It isn't necessarily thinking about 27 things you need to do. Sometimes you're not actually thinking about anything. It's just stuff. There's no specific thing. It's just I suppose it's the equivalent of tinnitus. It's like that kind of constant hum that isn't anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say something that alluded similar. I was going to say, for me, I have the busy head all of the time, and the brain fog part is probably when I'm at capacity or crashing and slipping into that kind of shutdown mode. And so for me, I see it as that perhaps me having a bit of a crash or those really foggy moments is probably as a result of trying to run the way that I do every other minute of the day kind of thing. So the busy headedness is not the brain fog for me. The brain fog is crash. That's at least how I think about it or experience it. I already will have trouble at times focusing or organizing my mind, but when I'm at capacity and feel really foggy, that's even worse kind of thing. And so it is like crash and burn. But I can feel it creeping in, like it's like a haziness, a sluggishness. I couldn't necessarily go to sleep, but I'm like that. In fact, I feel like a bit like that today, ironically.
Yeah, the weather doesn't help either, does it? Whereas I find that, when it's like this sort of muggy weather that's it sort of has the same sort of similar feeling to it.
Yeah. the muggy weather brings that feeling on in your body, and that's probably a nice little parallel to kind of what it is like in the head or something. Actually, yeah, you're right. When you feel,
I can see that.
it's kind of like that, but in your brain.
That full body lag that you get with it, where it's just, oh, I can't, listless, and although that's less being full, I guess, in the body, isn't it? That's more like, just, oh God, I can't do anything. But maybe that is what you're describing, because I think I'm sort of focused on the brain being maxed out by thoughts and ideas, which is a bit I relate to in it.
Well, maybe it is that, like we started, and you're probably right to start it that way, Matt, that maybe different people would speak about this slightly differently, and I've seen it pop up associated with different things, and maybe they mean differently as well, brain fog with depression might be different to brain fog with ADHD. Like, it's not actually a set specific thing. It's not listed somewhere, I don't think. I think it's more of an anecdotal associated kind of thing.
A very fuzzy metaphor, seems to be even fuzzier as we're talking about it, while being one that makes sense, because like intuitively the description feels really like, oh yeah, brain fog, that means a thing. But plainly it both does and doesn't, which is always interesting for mental health stuff, because I feel like from your descriptions I can almost taste the idea of it without necessarily feeling it, which I guess is the power of a good metaphor.
If the police started on this podcast, by the way, it's not. They just seem to have turned up here. I could go along that I'm doing a just stop oil process, or something like that, in a diesel van, which would be. Would it be ironic? I don't know, but it would be something.
Don't know anymore. I don't think anyone knows what irony is anymore, do they? We're in the fully post-ironic era.
Yeah,
it's strange. Can other people assist with brain fog, or is it a thing where you're both completely trapped in your own head and unable to ask for help, even if someone is able to, I don't know, vacuum your brain clear of something? Because Matt mentioned that you can't you can't even think about delegating or handing off the things that are stressing you out.
I couldn't generally. I needed to be as far away from other human beings as possible yesterday. Like
an ordinary day for me.
I suppose, in another sense, I suppose people could be helpful if someone who experienced it regularly enough was able to start letting the other person in on it and be like, look, sometimes it gets like this for me, and when it is like that, I need this kind of thing.
Yeah, disclosure matters, doesn't it, for that? If you feel able to do it.
Or, a bit of understanding or whatever it might be. I guess that's probably a way in which people could be helpful, isn't it?
God, imagine them in circles of brain foggers. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? All sat around in a room in some church hall somewhere.
Everyone
would brain fog, just either being that or swearing at each other and saying, how can you sit like that in that chair? Who said you should sit in that chair, not that chair? Why have you got a black jacket on? What's going on? All that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? It might work. It made me feel better just thinking about it.
But just having a good old rant and a moan.
Yeah, maybe argument and violence is the answer. Maybe that's the violence isn't the answer by only kids.
Make things better by complaining about stuff. I think that helps. I'm a fan of such things. Yeah, I think that there's space for that. I think that you're saying about understanding where it matters and giving people opportunity to understand it, because otherwise, like so many mental health conditions, it's just mysterious to other people, isn't it? I got this person I work with every day. Some days they're just useless and won't talk to me. Well, without any further information, no one can do anything about that. So the continued openness about mental health conditions and about the challenges that we're facing makes our lives and other people's lives better and more easy to deal with.
Some of the things that we talk about time and time again, or that is spoken about time and time again when it comes down to kind of health and well-being, are all relevant. Like even your diet. I think there's a growing body of research as to what you put in yourself. Obviously, it sounds obvious when you say it, affects kind of how your body and brain work.
That's why Matt shouldn't just eat nuts.
Routine, sleep, exercise, talking to people, it's those same collection of things again, isn't it? But I suppose it's probably knowing your triggers, isn't it? Or kind of recognizing what helps and what doesn't help you specifically. Maybe that's something. Matt and I seem to have similarities in the way we talk about some parts of it, but then differences, I'm sure, as well. So it's going to be more about Matt knowing exactly what he needs and spotting that when it's creeping in, and the same for me and all of that, And the backdrop to mine is ADHD, which I'm continuing to navigate and think about and stuff. So that's
going to be interesting.
I've just been trying.
I think.
Go on, you go.
I was going to say, I think what Matt said before about like trying to plan in time to do something else is good, because I know Matt sucks at that, planning days off and stuff. I'm not very good at it, but I do like to have a day every now and again, which I reserve entirely just for getting absolutely wasted and participating in no way with the rest of society, or indeed myself. The goal is to annihilate the self entirely and have a day where, at least for a few hours, I'm not even aware that I'm me. And I find that really reviving and re-energizing. I don't know if other people would find that quite as enjoyable. But making sure you get some time out from everything else is good.
If I'm not careful, some of my time out ends up being forced or kind of just unavoidable. It just has to happen kind of thing. And so I crash and burn kind of thing. So yeah, you're right. Trying to plan that in is helpful. But unfortunately, I'm not very good at that either. So
somehow it's less restful when you're forced to rest, because otherwise you're going to die.
Yeah, exactly. And
weird.
What I end up inevitably doing in life with everything is just taking things on, go, 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 go. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then eventually I have to go, oof, this is not sustainable.
It's fun to say yes to everything for a while, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And then you're stuck with too many things. Yep, I know that feeling. They're very hard to ditch as well. But that's a further negotiations and planning. I think we're about at the end of thinking about brain fog, so that you guys can sink back into your natural brain fog state, and while away the day while Matt waits for the police and thunderstorms to come in. Any final thoughts?
I do think, it's definitely one of the upsides, and it's something I need to work on. So like I've been trying to, if I get up early in the morning, I've been trying to work straight away, because it's just building up a defense mechanism. If I've been working from 5 or 6, by the time I get to 12, it's almost a full day. So if the rest of the day goes to kaput, who cares?
Yeah.
I might have to pick the kids up from school, but I don't have to talk to them, do it? That kind of thing.
No. Certainly not.
So yeah, I think that's it. Like, the coping mechanism, and I think for me, it's just building that time into my life where I've got a bit of. It just means I need to get on top of things. I think that's the way to deal with it. I just can't go through yesterday like it was yesterday, because I just needed to give up and not do anything, rather than just really try and plow on and achieve, half an hour's work in 5 hours or something. I just need to just not bother. And do something else, go for a walk, or go for a drink, or go for a swim, or all three, or whatever. I think that's, and I think, as well, with my own mental health, I think that's the answer going forward, isn't it? It's just finding a way of dealing with it. That's,
Give yourself what you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not be too kind of hard on yourself about it. If you could do that, that probably immediately makes most things that bit more manageable.
Well summed up.
I think so too. Yeah, that's good. I got nothing to add to that. That was perfect. Any last thoughts, Wes, beyond your beautiful summation?
You should have destroyed it now by saying something else.
Be kind to yourself and each other.
Look at his whiteboard. He's got nothing else. Look behind him. There's nothing on that whiteboard.
There's no room. Just wiped it all off with a temper.
Yeah, well, that just looks like fog to me. It could be. God knows what's underneath it.
Maybe he's written it in white.
Maybe.
Sounds good. All right then. Until next time. See you all soon.
Take care.
If you've been affected by anything that we've talked about tonight, that's cool. We were kind of hoping you would be. If you haven't been affected by anything tonight, then that's great too. You're probably fine. Of course, if you say you're fine, there's a good chance you aren't. So you might also have been affected. And if you've been affected before, you probably will be again. Please talk to someone. It can get better, and together we can survive. We are what we overcome.